call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
Welcome back, guys. I'm going to give you my predictions for every fight at UFC Fight Night Perth, Australia, which takes place this Saturday. If you guys are looking for a little bit more in-depth analysis of kind of why I'm making the picks that I am, a little bit more info and background on each of the fighters, check out my channel. I've got dedicated videos to every single one of the fights. Make sure and like and subscribe. Leave me a comment on what you guys think. Appreciate the feedback that I'm getting from you guys. Just recently hit 3,000 subs, so appreciate it. And no further ado, let's get into the first fight here, which is Jonathan Micallef versus Oban Elliott. I'm going to go with Oban Elliott in this one. I know that he had a pretty underwhelming performance in his last fight against Seok Ko. Got out-grappled, taken down for the majority of that fight, and just didn't really look like Oban Elliott. You know, he's usually able to defend takedowns pretty well, keep it at his range on the feet, and kind of outpoint guys or frustrate them enough to really start opening up on his offense and getting the finish like we saw in the Basel Hafez fight. Jonathan Micallef, you know, good kicks. You know, he had a really good performance against Kevin Jousset. Landing a lot of kicks, battering his midsection. I think he dropped him in the first round with a head kick. Just overall had a really good showing of himself against somebody like Kevin Jousset, who's a really good judo practitioner, decent stand-up. And I think that this is a very even fight between these two guys. But I'm going to go with Oban Elliott to get this one done. I think he'll be able to keep it on the feet, land the better strikes, maintain his range with his kicks, and not really put himself in position to get taken down or really hurt by Jonathan Micallef. I think he'll learn from his last fight where you know, instead of the offensive wrestling or staying in these grappling positions and these sequences where you can be taken down, I can see him, you know, looking to land strikes or circle off and get back to space. In that Seok Ko fight, he was too willing to stay close and engage in the clinch and offensively wrestle, which I didn't think that he thought Seok Ko would be as good as he was on the ground, which he should have, because the guy's you know, comes from a judo background, but he's really more primarily known as a striker with a lot of finishing potential on the feet. So I just think he didn't expect him to be as good in the clinch and on the ground. So I think he'll learn from that in this one, be able to kind of mitigate those grappling sequences from going south on him, and do enough on the feet to win a decision. Next up is Andre Petroski versus Cam Rowston. So Andre Petroski, I think he was on a 3-fight winning streak heading into his last fight against Edmund Shabazian, where he just really couldn't get his grappling going. He had a few takedowns, but could really never put anything together. And Edmund Shabazian was able to just kind of take over on the feet and really exploit the striking disparity in skill between the two. I do think that Andre Petroski, I think he got dropped in that fight too by a head kick, so wasn't the best performance for him. He's definitely looking to get the fight to the ground, not looking to keep it on the feet by any means, unless he's going up against somebody like Rodolfo Vieira, who has very good grappling as well. He's usually looking to get takedowns and you know, take the fight where where he knows he has the best chance to win. Taking on Cam Rowston, who was on Dana White's Contender Series against Torres Finney, was just out grappled in that fight, and you know, I can excuse that. Torres Finney is just a, you know, muscled up guy looking to get takedowns and lay on guys, but he came back and got the knockout against Holmes. I think it was Brandon Holmes in the first round. So making a quick turnaround a month later, taking on Andre Petroski. Gonna go with Petroski. I just don't think there's anything that Rowston does that, you know, he's a decent striker, but I think he struggles from the grappling perspective, and you know, his takedown defense. He got taken down like 10 times by Torres Finney, who again, great wrestler, big dude, but not the most skilled fighter. I think Petroski's more skilled. I think he's got the better stand-up. Comes from a D1 wrestling background, jiu-jitsu brown belt. He's got a lot of you know, finishing ability on the ground. So I think Petroski, he'll be able to eventually get the fight to the ground, find his takedowns, and get the win over Rowston by decision. He's got a lot of UFC experience, fought a lot of really good guys. I just think Cam Rowston hasn't fought the best competition. You look on the regional scene. You know, I just think this is a stiff test for somebody like him coming into the UFC, and I know that his Achilles heel, being from City Kickboxing, is the lack of grappling. You know, we've seen that before. So I'm gonna go with Andre Petroski to get his takedowns on this one and get the submission or the decision. Brando Peričić takes on Ellison. So Brando Peričić, you know, decent striker. Again, not a lot of experience. lost to a guy on the regional scene by submission, but other than that, I think he's got a submission win and then several KOs. Hasn't fought the best competition. Same with Ellison. He's only been doing MMA for like 2 or 3 years now. Comes from a jiu-jitsu background, but also has finishing ability on the feet. Had some impressive knockouts that I saw in the regional scene. So I'm gonna go with Ellison. I think he's got more ways to win this one. I think he's going to be, he's going to have the ability to hang in there and do damage on the feet, I think. But I also think he's got the ability to get takedowns and find submissions as well. I saw in Brando Peričić's regional scene, he was having a lot of success on the feet against a guy. But when he couldn't get him out of there and it went into the second round, he kind of started to fizzle and gas out, started to get taken down, and gave up a submission. So that's kind of what I see in this one. I see Ellison being able to get respect on the feet, maybe even finish him on the feet. He's got power, he's got skill on the feet, but mixing in his grappling, shooting for takedowns, getting his takedowns. And I think he'll eventually get it to the ground and find the submission in this one. So I'm going to go with the underdog in Ellison to get this one done. Jamie Mullarkey takes on Rolando Bedoya. So Jamie Mullarkey, I think he's really skilled. It's just I think his chin doesn't hold up at times. He's been knocked out like 6 times in his career, coming in off of 2 knockouts against Mauricio Hufi and Nasrat Haqparas, whereas Rolando Bedoya 0-3 in the UFC, all by decision. So I'm going to go Jamie Mullarkey in this one. I just think that he's a little grittier, a little bit more well-rounded, regardless of his chin issue. He is willing to, get in your face, make it a war, make it gritty. He's willing to take one to give one. I just think he's a little bit better everywhere, and I think he's got more finishing potential than Rolando Bedoya, whether it goes to the ground or it stays on the feet. He's fought really good guys, only lost to really good guys, mixes in his takedowns really well. Bedoya can be taken down, so I'm going to go with Jamie Mullarkey. I think that he's just the better striker. I think that he does a good job of mixing in his grappling and his takedowns with his striking, whereas Bedoya is just going to be kind of looking primarily to keep it on the feet. So I'm going to go with Mullarkey to make it a little bit gritty, putting a lot more out there to be judged by the refs, and getting this one done. He's been off for 14 months now, so letting the chin heal up, getting rejuvenated to come back and get this one done. I think he's good. I think he's underrated. He's had a lot of success in some of these fights that he's had. Some of them that even didn't go his way. Against Muhammad Naimov was looking really good. Has wins over Francisco Prado, Michael Johnson. So underrated guy. Fought for Fares Ziam, Brad Riddell. Lost those fights, but still those are really good guys. So has the better resume in terms of who he's fought. And again, Rolando Bedoya, he hasn't fought since August of 2024 either. So he's coming in, a year later. Might be a little bit of ring rust in this one, but I trust Jamie Mullarkey. I think he's the better striker. I think he's got the better grappling. I think he's better everywhere. My only concern is the chin. I just don't know if Bedoya's got the snap in his punches to get Jamie Mullarkey out of there. So I'm gonna go Jamie Mullarkey to get this one done. Luana Carolina takes on Michelle Montagu. Luana Carolina, 11-4. She's got a lot of experience in the UFC. 15 fights to Michelle Montagu's 6. Luana Carolina, she's fought a lot of good fighters in the UFC. She's got some decent wins. I would say decent just because I don't know how good the competition is, on a 3-fight winning streak. But Lucy Pudilova, Julia Stolarenko, Ivana Petrovic, those aren't exactly monsters in the UFC. Got finished by Molly McCann by KO. Got easily knee-barred by Ariane Alexia da Silva. So she can be taken down. Her takedown defense does show that it's good, but she's getting taken down a lot in her fights and getting taken down by fighters that I don't think are, the best. So even mediocre fighters who aren't specialists in the grappling department are getting takedowns on her. Whereas Michelle Montagu, all 6 of her wins are by rear naked choke. Has a very credentialed amateur wrestling career, so she's definitely going to be the better striker. So I'm going to go with her, just the fact that she is the specialist in this one, and her striking is not terrible, but she does very well at grappling, and I would say that's Luana Carolina's Achilles heel, and that she does give up takedowns. She can be submitted, she can be finished, and I just don't think Luana Carolina is going to have I don't think she's going to have an ability to really get a lot of respect on the feet to keep Michelle Montagu from pressing forward and getting her takedowns. She's aggressive. She's got, a lot of tools on the feet, but doesn't seem to have a lot of finishing potential there. More of a kind of a point striker and doing that against, or it's being effective against not the best strikers or the best fighters at all. You know, she fights somebody who's decent. You know, Joanne Calderwood, she loses. Lipski da Silva, she loses. She did have a win over Lupita Godinez, but that was on short notice, so weight class up. And Lupita Godinez, again, got several takedowns on her. So I'm going to go with Michelle Montagu. Just too good of a wrestler, too much finishing potential on the feet, or on the ground, sorry. Big, strong. This is a decent test for her on the, you know, being at her UFC debut, but I think she'll be able to get this one done. I think she'll be able to get Luana Carolina to the ground eventually and find the submission. Next up is Colby Thickness versus Josias Musasa. You know, Colby Thickness took his last fight against Alexander Topuria on 2 weeks' notice. Didn't win the fight, but I thought he had a decent showing of himself. You know, he had some success there in the fight. Showed off a good chin. Was 7-0 undefeated heading into that fight. But, you know, he's training with Volk, been training with Volk for a long time, been training MMA at that gym for, you know, years now, since he was a teenager, I believe. So, very well-rounded, jiu-jitsu brown belt, very good on the ground, good grappling, grew up wrestling, playing rugby, likes to stick and move on the feet, light on the feet, good cardio. Taking on Josias Musasa, who was also undefeated heading into his last fight against Carlos Vera. Huge favorite in that fight. I thought he was going to run through and smoke Carlos Vera, who was just an old man who rolls for legs, but Carlos Vera ended up rocking him, knocking him down with a head kick, and then finishing him. So, I know I'm going to go with Colby Thickness. I think that he's got more tools. I think he's more well-rounded. Again, been training with Volkanovski for years from a good gym. I think he's got more tools. And Musasa just has awful takedown defense. If you watch his fight against in Dana White's Contender Series, he was giving up takedowns way too easily. I think he gave up 4 of them. Granted, his opponent was pretty good, but giving up takedowns like that, getting rocked by Carlos Vera, and then finished so easily on the ground. I trust Colby's defense on the feet. I think he'll be able to mix it up, stay safe, land his own strikes, find his takedowns, and get a decision or a submission win in this one. I don't know. He's an underdog in this one. Josias Musasa's minus 170, which I get. You know, Musasa's, you know, got a lot of power on the feet, a lot of finishing potential, but I think somebody like I think Colby Thickness will be able to kind of game plan against somebody that power punching approach that's going to be coming his way. I think that he'll be able to game plan against that in order to get a win. Navajo Sterling takes on Rodolfo Bellato. So Navajo Sterling, I'm not convinced by this guy. You know, he's supposed to be a high-level kickboxer, and, you know, on the regional scene, he does have some good wins, but then he fights people like Tuco Tokos. He looked awful in that fight, I feel like, was losing the grappling. Couldn't get Tuco Tokos out of there, which he should. You know, if he's this highly touted striker, he should be getting something like Tuco Tokos out of there. Ivan Erslan, again, went to a decision, not the most entertaining fight. And taking on somebody like Rodolfo Bellato, who did have an absolutely embarrassing, pathetic performance in his last fight against Paul Craig. Winning the fight, no reason to, you know, turn on the theatrics and do what he did. Blows my mind that happened, but I think Rodolfo Bellato is just too well-rounded, and he's too good for Navajo Sterling. He's got a lot of experience, jiu-jitsu black belt, very good off of his back, good wrestling, good striking, heavy leg kicks, you know, a lot of power on the feet. Not the fastest guy, but he is accurate, he is tough, he can land on you, gets in your face, makes the cage very small. And I think that he'll be able to make Navajo Sterling uncomfortable, where, you know, Navajo Sterling, sometimes he'll shoot takedowns in order to kind of get a break on the feet, and I don't think he can do that in this fight. I don't think there's going to be an area of this fight where he's going to be able to find peace or find an area to break, because Bellato's going to be pushing forward, looking to put hands on him. If he shoots on Bellato, it's not going to be a good night. I think if this goes to the ground, I think Bellato can get the finish via ground and pound or submission. Bellato is... I think that he's one of the most well-rounded guys at 205 right now, in terms of his ability on the feet to hurt guys, his wrestling. He is kind of chinny at times, but other than that, he is pretty durable. He's willing to kind of, if he does get rocked, he's able to come back and win those fights, like the Potieria fight, the Jimmy Crute fight. He was, you know, losing early, but able to dig deep and push through and get the win. So I'm gonna go with Bellato in this one. I think that he'll be able to hold his own wherever the fight goes, and I just think that he's too good everywhere, whereas Sterling is very good on the feet. But from what I've seen on the feet of him so far, I'm not impressed, you know, and I don't think he'll be able to grapple in this fight the way that he has in previous fights to find breaks. I think that he struggles with his gas tank in an MMA setting with the grappling and mixing up with the striking. You see in some of his fights, the second round comes around and he's dying for air, and I just don't think he's going to find anywhere for a break in this fight. And it's a long fight against a super dangerous guy who has a great gas tank as well. Rolando, for being as big and strong as the guy is, he's got a great gas tank and can push for 3 hard rounds. And I think he's going to be looking to make a statement in this one and get everybody forgetting about his embarrassment of a performance in his last fight. So I'm going to go with Rolando to get this one done. Loma Lugbunmi versus Alexia Thainara. Alexia Thainara, she looked good. Dana White's Contender Series, she had a decent win over an opponent who's like 5-0, but recently hasn't. I think she's 5-3 now. So, how do you rate that performance? And then she debuted against Molly McCann, was able to get her to the ground and submit her. Molly McCann's not the best grappler. I think she's a brown belt, but still, she looks to keep it on the feet and throw hands. And Loma Lugbunmi, she's shown a good ability to keep fights on the feet. When it does go to the ground, she's usually pretty good at getting back up to her feet or scrambling or staying safe. She was subbed like 8 years ago, but since then her only losses are by decision, and it's against really good competition. So I'm going to go with Loma Lugbunmi. There's just nothing that Thainara has shown me so far that makes me think that she'll be able to outskill somebody like Loma Lugbunmi, who I think is one of the best fighters we have at 115 pounds. I think that she's undersized. I think she belongs to atom weight, but I think that her striking is... You're going to be hard-pressed to find a better striker than her in that division. She's got 200 amateur Muay Thai fights before that. She's got heavy leg kicks. Not the most power with her hands, but she is technical. She's able to land. She's able to stay safe defensively. I think that she's a pretty big underdog in this one, and it's probably because her last fight against Estela Nunez just wasn't the best showing. She did win, but Estela Nunez is no slouch on the feet either. But wins over Bruna Brazil, Denise Gomez. She's able to get takedowns of her own in these fights. She has a submission win over Elise Reed. She's a jiu-jitsu purple belt, so she's a very high-level striker that you can tell is working hard at rounding out her skill set. And she trained at Syndicate MMA. She was at Tiger Muay Thai in Phuket, Thailand, so she's got good gyms around her. Again, only losing to Lupita Godinez and Angela Hill in the UFC. Those are very high-level fighters, some of the best. And Alexia Thainara, again, a win on the Contender Series, a win on against Molly McCann. She just, she's a good grappler. She's got decent striking. I just haven't seen anything that's spectacular, in my opinion. And you look through her record, hasn't fought a lot of people with a lot of experience. So I think there's just still a lot to be known about Thainara for me to pick her against somebody like Loma Lugbunmi, who's a hard night out for anybody, who's very well rounded. So I'm gonna go with Loma to get this one done by decision. Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. I'm gonna go Tom Nolan in this one. Tom Nolan, he's very good on the feet, very rangy, tall for the division. Had that setback against Nicholas Mota in his UFC debut, but since then he's looked really good. Whereas Charlie Campbell, crafty dude, good hands. Had that crazy performance against Chris Duncan where he almost had him knocked out, but then he got chinned himself. But ever since then, been on a 3-fight winning streak. Beat Alex Reyes and Trevor Peek in the UFC. Not the best competition, but you can only fight who's put in front of you. But I think Charlie Campbell, he's a tough dude. He can wrestle, defensively wrestle. He's got power in the hands. Just kind of a pressure fighter, gritty guy looking to land paws on guys. But Charlie, he's got the striking ability and the toughness to go tit for tat with Tom Nolan. I think. I think that he has the chance to knock out Tom Nolan, who can be. He can be chinned. He can be hurt. He's been hurt several times in his UFC fights. But I don't know. I don't like the way that Charlie Campbell was responding to the pressure and the volume that was coming his way from Trevor Peek, where he was kind of desperately shooting for takedowns. Wasn't really responding well to the onslaught coming his way from Trevor Peek. And I just think Nolan can do that same thing, but more technically, with better shots from range. I think he'll be throwing a lot more diverse strikes, kicks, knees, elbows. Does a really good job of mixing up his targets and mixing up his tools. So battering Campbell's legs. He doesn't check leg kicks very well. So I'm going to go with Tom Nolan to slowly kind of take over in this one, beating up Charlie Campbell. And I think he'll get a finish in this one, a TKO, as the fight progresses, maybe late round 2, round 3. Jake Matthews takes on Neil Magny. I'm gonna go Jake Matthews. Both these guys have tons of experience, but Jake Matthews, very well rounded. Good boxing, good wrestling, jiu-jitsu black belt. Just had a really good performance over Chidi and Jaquani. Got that trip and then the rear naked choke. I think he's really just starting to come into his own, coming into his prime. He's fought so many good fighters in the UFC. There's just not really any major holes in his game. And Neil Magny is kind of chinny, can be finished on the feet, can be finished on the ground. Had that kind of comeback win over Elisha in his last fight, but again, Elisha, older guy, kind of fizzled out as the fight progressed. But Neil Magny's going to look to get this into the clinch, get his underhooks, and kind of beat up Jake Matthews there, maybe try to drag him to the ground. But, I just think Jake Matthews, he's too good on the feet, too good at, managing his range. He's going to be the better striker. I think he's going to have the ability to stay safe in the clinch if it does go to the ground. Again, he's got really good wrestling, really good jiu-jitsu, so I think he can kind of negate that from Neil Magny. And got really good cardio as well. Neil Magny is known to kind of drag guys into deep water and drown them, but I just don't think he's going to do that against somebody like Jake Matthews, who's very tenacious. He's tough. I think he's finally starting to put everything together, and I just don't think he's going to lose to 38-year-old Neil Magny at this point in his career. So I'm going to go Jake Matthews. I think he can find the finish in this one. I think he can get the KO over Neil Magny. But if he can, I definitely think he gets the win in this one. Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Taveras. I'm going to go Jack Jenkins. He's much more well-rounded, has much more tools than Ramon Taveras, who's just primarily a boxer. He's got good hands. He can hurt guys on the feet. But outside of that, I think he trains at a boxing gym. Doesn't have a ground game from what I've seen, whereas Jack Jenkins, jiu-jitsu black belt, mixes in his takedowns really well. I think he's going to batter the legs of Ramon Taveras, who, again, primarily a boxer. You see in his previous fights, he doesn't really check leg kicks. Hasn't fought the best competition. He fought Sergey City, went 1-1 with Sergey City, but outside of that, lost to Davey Grant in his last fight, where Davey Grant, again, just the more well-rounded guy. More weapons with the kicks, the striking, the footwork. Just kind of ran a clinic on him. So I'm going to go with Jack Jenkins in this one. I think that he'll batter him on the feet, look to mix in takedowns. But I think Jack Jenkins get this one done. You look at his career, and he's coming off of that loss to Gabriel Santos. I think he broke something in his neck in that one, trying to defend a triangle. But outside of that, the Herbert Burns fight just absolutely battered him. Was going tit for tat with Chepe Mariscal in that fight before he hurt his arm. And if you know Chepe Mariscal, you know how much of a dog he is and how impressive that is. Beat Jamal Emmers, who I think is super good. So I think Jack Jenkins is very good. Been kind of 50-50 in the UFC with things not really going his way at times. Some unfortunate things happening, but I think he's very dangerous on the feet with the hands. Obviously the kicks, throws kicks to all levels. He's just going to have so many more tools. Like Ramon Taveras, it's literally boxing versus leg kicks, striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. I just think Jack Jenkins he's gonna have more options in this fight, and it's gonna allow him to get the win in this one over Ramon Taveras. Louie Sutherland takes on Justin Tafa. So Justin Tafa, one of the Tafa brothers, coming in off of a 2-loss streak, taking on Louie Sutherland, big guy, coming in off of a knockout over Luke Newland on the regional scene on a 4-fight winning streak. So I'm gonna go with Louie Sutherland on this one. I just don't trust Justin Tafa at this point in his career. He's got some wins in the UFC, but it's Harry Hunsucker, Parker Porter, and Austin Lane. I don't rate those wins. Lost to Jared Bandera, Carlos Felipe, Yorgan de Castro. At this point in his career, I just can't trust Justin Tafa to round out his skill set, to learn wrestling, to learn to defend a takedown, to push past the first round and still be able to throw with power. He's 6 foot, going up against this guy who's 6'3". He's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage, so I think Louie Sutherland's going to be able to get respect on the feet, get his takedowns, and win this one. It's just hard for me to pick Justin Tafa to win this fight in 2025. And he is a -125 favorite, but I'm going to go with Louie Sutherland to get this one done. Jimmy Crute takes on Ivan Erslan. I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute in this one. Jimmy Crute, very well-rounded. good judo background, good takedowns, good submission game, power on the feet, good leg kicks. Ivan Erslan, more of a striker. He is crafty on the feet, got crispy boxing, good defense, cuts good angles, but he can be taken down pretty easily. He was taken down by Sterling like 3 times, and put in some pretty bad situations on the ground where I feel like if Crute gets you in that position, he's going to make you pay. Just being the better, more accomplished grappler, I think that if he gets Ivan Erslan in those positions, he's going to be able to finish the fight. So I think Erslan in his past, he's been able to kind of stay safe in those positions, and does a good job of popping right back up against less skilled grapplers, but I think Crute would do much better in those positions and take advantage of the glaring holes in Erslan's game there. So I think he'll do a better job of controlling him, hurting him on the ground, hunting for subs, and gets this one done. Jimmy Crute throws a really good leg kick, so Ivan Erslan doesn't really check leg kicks very well, so I think he'll be using that to kind of stifle the movement of Erslan, mixing his striking to get his takedowns, and eventually find the submission against Ivan Erslan. On to the main event, Carlos Ulberg versus Dominick Reyes. I wanted to go Dominick Reyes in this one. I think he's very good. I think he's been done dirty by the UFC in getting robbed of that John Jones win and then having to fight Jan Blachowicz, Jiří Procházka back-to-back. Did have 3 knockout losses in a row, but ever since then took a little time off, came back, and is now riding a 3 KO win streak of his own. I think this is a very high-level fight between these two guys. Both of them are very similar in that they're primarily strikers with good takedown defense. They both have good check left hooks. They can both fight forwards or backwards. But I'm going to go with Ulberg in this one. I think that Reyes has fought the better competition, but I think Ulberg's just a tad bit better in terms of skills. I think that Reyes is willing to kind of stand in the fire, take one to give one. He's really willing to kind of wade into the pocket, not wade, but really willing to get in your face and throw punches and take his chances on getting hit back. So I think that Ulberg will be successful against kind of a style like that. I think Ulberg will be kind of working from the outside, looking to land his counters. I think he's very good defensively, and I think he'll be able to kind of manage the blitz style of Reyes, who does like to push forward at times, and a lot of times it's haphazardly without really defense in mind, and we saw that with the Ryan Spann fight. He was able to get caught in that one, but I'm just not sure, with the approach that Reyes has, where he kind of relies on his chin and kind of blitzes in against guys. I just don't know if he has the chin anymore to really be successful with that style usually, or especially with coming up against a guy like Ulberg, who has the ability to counter and to throw really fast, really powerful combinations. Reyes, he's taken a lot of damage in his career. Broke his nose against Jan. Sorry, I think he re-broke it against Jiří, but been knocked out in those 3 fights pretty badly. I just think his style plays right into Ulberg's style, who'll be looking to kind of pull the offense out of Reyes, maybe going first and third, pulling it out of him, landing the counters on the back foot. He's got very fast counters, very fast hands, really good check left hook. Both of these guys have really good check left hooks as they move backwards. Even Reyes, he'll be moving backwards and he'll plant that left hand on guys and get him out of there like he did against Krylov. But I don't see Ulberg pushing in aggressively like that in order for him to land it. I don't see Ulberg following him around. I can see him kind of working on the back foot, cutting angles, managing his distance very well. And Ulberg can take a shot too. He got knocked out in that Nzechukwu fight, but outside of that, he's shown an ability to take a punch. So I think he'll be a little bit crisper in the pocket, throwing more multi-punch combinations, cutting angles a little bit better with his footwork, mixing up his targets a little bit better. Reyes has good kicks. He's got good punches as well. So both these guys are pretty even in that regard, but I think that Ulberg will start battering the legs of Reyes, who doesn't really check leg kicks that well. We've seen in this fight with Jan Blachowicz and Jiří, he was getting his legs eaten up. So I think Ulberg will just mix up the targets, batter his legs, get him frustrated on the feet, where Reyes will kind of become a little bit more reckless as kind of the damage piles up and he's not getting the offense going that he's used to seeing. And I just think Ulberg will kind of start to snowball and take over as the fight progresses en route to getting a knockout on the feet. So I'm going to go with Ulberg. I think he's just got a little bit of an edge from the technical perspective on the feet. Got home field advantage, riding a huge win streak right now. I think if he wins this fight, he'll probably get a title shot. So I'm going to go with Ulberg to get this one done by KO. And as much as that hurts me because I like Dominick Reyes, but I think Ulberg will get this one done. So if you're still watching this, appreciate it, guys. Again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about my picks and why I'm picking them. And check out the channel for more in-depth looks at each of these fights. Appreciate you watching. Thanks.